Hello everyone, my name is Nikulina Evgenia, and today I'm filming this video about twin flame union with my partner. Before, I've already filmed a couple videos about twin flame, and you can find them on my channel. A lot of you were asking me about the perspective on this relationship from the men's part, and today I invited him to share his point of view on different phases that you go through being in a twin flame relationship, and how to go through separation, how to realize that it's actually your twin flame, and what man feels during this experience. So share, like, and follow. Let's go.
Yes.
Please.
I'm here.
Come, sit down here.
All right.
All right. Welcome to my YouTube.
Oh, wow. Nice to be here.
If this is your first time on my YouTube channel and you don't know the story about our love, I'm inviting you to watch previous videos, but long story short, I'm from Ukraine. My partner's from States. From United States, and today he came to my YouTube channel to talk about twin flame relationship and his perspective on this topic. So let's talk about it. How did you realize that our relationship are actually the real twin flame union? How did you feel it? How did you realize it?
The first sign was that it felt unlike any other relationships that I had in the past, which is very, even tough to say and think, because, growing up in Los Angeles and living in Hollywood, you see a lot of these movies that are designed, they call them rom-coms. They're designed to get people to believe in true love, and there's that one person for you, and it's going to be a fairy tale, and a lot of these movies are set like that. But from a guy's perspective, oftentimes we just think it's bullshit, right? We don't think it's the real thing. We think, how could it be different? And until you experience it, you wouldn't know that it's different. And that's how I knew it was different, is because I've had a lot of relationships in the past, and none of them felt the way that it felt with you, even from the beginning, or how it's continued to grow into the future. So I would say that was to be my first sign, is that they always say you think it's going to be different, and it's going to feel different, and you'll just know it's the one. But for me, I found that to be very true.
So we are from different part of the world, and for women it's more normal to give up everything and follow their love and move to their man, right? And just like give up on everything and follow their heart. How that feels for you from the man perspective, that we are from different part of the world,
yeah.
And you needed to move to Ukraine for a while, and what did you feel from man perspective?
Well, and again, that's what I feel makes this different, right? Because you know how you feel in past relationships, you know the emotions you have towards someone. At least for me, I told you this a lot of times, like I would get sick of people after a while. They would start to irritate me. I would always be looking for what was coming next. And I never really felt like I always wanted to be around someone. I really appreciated my own time, and I traveled a lot. And then I think the difference is once we started to spend time together, that all went away. And I really enjoyed spending every day with you and getting to know you, and there was nothing about you that made me want to have my own time or leave. So then the decision to come to Ukraine was a very easy one for me, because our story, we started pretty much living together for the first 2.5 months, traveling all through Dubai, the Middle East, and Turkey. And I had this feeling about you ever since we started meditating on the pyramids. I could literally feel your emotions. I could feel your energy, and way beyond what words described. And so for me, that was a very powerful sign that this was something that was not average, not ordinary, that went way beyond just a physical attraction. So when it came time for our journey and our summer to end, I really did not want to be apart from you, and I wanted to be a part of all of your world. And if visiting the Ukraine was the way for me to meet your children and meet your parents and see where you're from, it was more of a natural reaction than something that I feel like I had to do just because we were dating, or, you know, there was no inner turmoil inside of me that said, yeah, maybe you should go, maybe you shouldn't go. It was always just, you know, a definite feeling of I want to be there and I need to be there, and nothing out of like guilt or what society says I should have done. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But as you remember, at first place, when we had separation at the first time, after a month we spent together, I should have come back to Ukraine, and at the first place you didn't want to come, and that was like honest, you know, I'm not ready for that yet. Right?
That was very early on, yeah.
Yes. So
because we were still bonding and still getting to know each other. Yeah. And also the other part was I already had a plan, an itinerary. So, you know, I would have kind of had to like break that up, what I was already doing. Mm-hmm. And you really wanted to go back and get all your stuff situated. Mm-hmm. But yeah, after we spent another almost 2 months together, then yeah, the relationship grew. And ours is a very unconventional story as well, because typically when you date somebody, they live in their house, you live in your house, and you might see them once a week in the beginning, then maybe twice a week. But most of the time you have is spent apart, not together. And with us, it was quite different. We just basically started traveling together, which meant we were living together and spending, you know, the entire day with each other 24/7. And in the past, when I had been around girls that I didn't feel this connection with, the more time you spend with them, if it starts to become uncomfortable, right, then you're looking for reasons why you say no to hanging out or, you know, finding your own time. But that wasn't the case with you. And that was like one of the big factors for me, is that instead of the more time we spent together, I wanted to get away and have my own time. You know, when it came time to go to Ukraine, I didn't want to then not have you around.
Mm-hmm. A lot of my followers are asking the question about how exactly man feels through the moment of separation. If you remember that period when we broke up at the first time, mm-hmm. and that was like dead serious, and we like, okay, we're not gonna be together anymore. What exactly did you feel there?
Oof. Well, that's a loaded question.
Yes.
Because I went through an entire cycle, if you remember, of how I felt. So in the beginning, it was, you know, a very big shock, obviously. I felt extremely sad because I think a very important part of me and my life was being taken away from me. And I never had foreseen that coming. You know, I never thought that that was something that could happen. But I've been broken up with many people in the past, right? Like you separate, and usually the immediate reaction is, you know, well, I'll just move on with my life. I'll just, you know, carry on. But with you, I never really had that feeling that, like, even though I knew we were temporarily separated, I knew deep down that was not something I was willing to let go of, no matter what. And just like I think the human response, the ego response was initially to be like really sad, to be really upset. You know, you go from sad to upset, and then wanting to lash out. Something happened to me that had never happened to me before on any of the breakups that I had, which was I really started to look at the bigger picture, and instead of wanting to like go delete you from my Instagram or start talking bad about you to everybody or start really defending myself to like my group, you know, typically if you break up with someone, usually you'll call your friends, you'll call your family, you'll tell them what happened. And what you'll do is you'll start to like defend your position against it, right? Like, oh, they did this. And then of course your friends and family will hear that and, you know, paint them the bad picture. But something different happened with us in that after about the first 48 hours of shock, I started to see it from a different perspective, in that you meant so much to me, and the time that we had together was so special that instead of wanting to delete you from my life and to go, you know, talk bad about you to everybody and really like have that natural reaction to throw up barriers, I had a different response, which was I started to really appreciate even the fact that all the times that we had, had together, and really focus on that versus, the bad part of it, because I felt like this has happened for a reason. And in that moment, to really feel the opposite way that your human reaction will want you to feel was another really big sign for me that this was something that was different. The fact that I really appreciated how I felt about you. I appreciated the time that we had spent together, the memories that we had created together, all the lessons and everything that I'd learned with you became something that I really reflected on. And I even went on Instagram Live, and I actually started filming some videos about like, hey guys, if this happens to you, don't focus on the negative, focus on the positive. And then I think after I went through that, is when I decided that no, I'm not going to let her go. I remember being in the hotel and like leaving my hotel room and driving to your house and jumping over the wall and running up the stairs. And, it was something that I was going to fight for, and I was not just going to let go. And I think my initial response had a lot to do with that, but also the way that I felt about you. It was the first time I had ever felt that way afterwards, and then had the reaction that I did. So,
you also had a dream that you was dreaming about, and you texted me right away after you had that dream. But I also kick it back from Igor perspective and saying that we will deal with that problem that was the reason why we broke up, and then we will talk about feelings. What was that dream about?
Yeah, it woke me up in the middle of the night. It's funny, I haven't thought about that since it happened. Yeah, I was in the middle of the night. Should have been dead asleep because I had gone out with my friends. They were like, hey, come out, like don't just sit and sulk, whatever. So I went out with them and had some drinks, just to kind of try to take my mind off of it. They knew what happened. And I went to sleep. So I should have been dead asleep. Me, having been together 3 years, like once I go down, I'm down. I sleep like kind of like a bear, right?
Yeah.
I'm a very, very heavy sleeper. And in the midst of that, I was woken up. And, actually, I wasn't woken up. In my dream is when, I was really quickened to have that reaction that I had, that like, no, you don't cancel this person. No, you don't just delete them from your life. You don't react to them in this way, because they were actually a gift to you, and the time that you had was a gift. And regardless if you guys decide to stay together, you need to see this as one of the best things that happened to you, right, in your life, and not have that reaction of negative and trying to block them out, because there's a lesson to be learned in everything that you do in life, right, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And that dream, I have very, very intense dreams, as you know, but that one was the one that really like shook me. And I woke up and I even wrote all this down, remember, in my journal, like the lesson that I had, which was another powerful sign to me. Like a lot of our relationship has been powerful signs when you talk about twin flame. I think even in the way that prior, how we met, by writing our lists down, right, and really saying what we wanted, then being dragged to a far off place, you were the last person added to the trip. Just the way that we met was very chance encounter. There was a lot of things had to go right just for us to be in that right situation. And then, everything that's happened after that, like us bonding at the pyramids, right, on a bluff, on a plateau overlooking 9 pyramids, where our relationship really started. There's been a lot of these signs and a lot of things that have happened along the way, including this dream, that are things that had never happened before. And I think, when you're young, everybody wants to believe in true love, right? Especially girls. Girls look at all the Disney movies. You're the princesses. The guys are going to come to rescue you, right? You want this perfect person to come along and do that. And for guys, we don't really have those types of characters, right? Like they're not built up like they are for girls. So I think girls believe in a lot more. And guys, depending on where your background's from, you may believe in true love, or you may just think it's something that's, made up. Right. But I think deep down we all really want to find somebody that really completes us. But as you get older, and I was 43 when I met you, but so as you get older and you go through a lot of different relationships and things don't work out and maybe you attract the wrong person, as a man, you start to believe that exists less and less and less and less, right? And that's kind of what had happened to me. I had started to believe less and less that there was a perfect person for me, because anytime I was with somebody, I could always find something about them that I didn't like, or that annoyed me, or that they weren't everything that I really wanted in somebody, right? And then when you came along, you really checked all those boxes, right, of everything. And not only did I recognize it, but I think my higher self recognized it. And that's one of the reasons why, this has been so special and so unique and so different. And then as a man, you can recognize that, right? You really start to recognize that.
Yeah. And also talking about things that happening behind expectations. The moment we broke up, we went to the same club. not talking to each other. We we broke up. We don't talk to each other. We hang out with different people. That's it. And we come in together. And of course, Gil surrounded by women, I surrounded by guys. And this is zzz.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like salt in the wound.
Yes. And after that, okay, that's it. That, before I was thinking I'll come back or we will make up. No, that's it. That's it. That was the it. And of course, that was the it, was the last straw that breaks the camel's back. And after that, you're no. We'll stay together no matter what. I'm not letting you anywhere.
Yeah, no, because so as a man, once you experience everything, right? Once you have everything and you've gone your whole life without having all of that, then to give that up is really, really painful, because then the chances of you meeting that again are very, very slim, right? Maybe impossible. And if that's not something that you're going to be able to have going into the future once you've had it, then no one else is going to, you're always going to be unhappy. You're always going to be in lack.
That's a very important thing about twin flame, because every time when you gonna go after this relationship, it will always have some lack in
always.
Even it will be absolutely perfect.
Correct.
Absolutely, you will have everything you desire that you kind of don't have in twin flame relationship. That will not beat what you have here. Even you will have all checkpoints for your ego, right?
Yeah. And I think you recognize that.
Yeah.
You honestly, at least for me, I recognize that.
Yeah.
I knew what I had been with in the past. And I'd been with, a lot of nice people, sure, just like you have been. But there was always something missing, right? And you can recognize that as a human part. Oh, she's beautiful, but she's not smart. Oh, she's smart, but she's not beautiful. Oh, she's both, but she doesn't like to travel. Right? There's always the missing part. And then when you find someone that has all of that, and then they find that in you, then I think that's when our love really started to grow, right? And then it really starts to take root, and you recognize that it is possible, right? And then once, as you get older, once you can break down some of these negative thoughts that you've had in the past, and you shatter that and you experience it, then you can really become even more immersed into it, right? Then you really let yourself go, and that's when it gets to be very special, and the love, like I say, every day I love you more and more, and people might say, oh, that's cliche, or that sounds cute, but not really. But it's the truth. When you're with your twin flame, every day you find something that you learn to love more about the person or appreciate more about the person. And it doesn't just plateau like in a lot of relationships. It just continues to go.
Okay, my love.
Yes.
Everyone keep talking about twin flame, and people thinking that it's oh my God, the heaven on earth, amazing butterflies and unicorns relationship. But we know it's not like that. So my question is, what is triggering the hell out of you from my side? Like, what are your triggers? What are your triggers with me?
Yeah, that's very interesting because I think in twin flame, the things that trigger you are the things, it really becomes like something about yourself, right? That you see in the other person that they do that triggers you. So that's a really like tough concept for some people to understand, right? Like, why would that be? And it's because, you know, when you realize that we're all one, right? Especially the twin flame, and there's not like two halves, you make a whole, then things in the other person that you may have never looked in the mirror about yourself or you never really confronted become amplified, right? And so those things will trigger you, and then you'll see them, you know, happening over and over and over again. And with a lot of the people in the past, there was different things that triggered me about them, but most of them were because we didn't share similarities, or you know, they talked a certain way I didn't like, or they, you know, just it was just who they were, part of who they were. With you, it's not about. There's nothing about who you are that triggers me. It's just like little things that you do every once in a while, right?
Tell me about it.
So, one of them
Yes.
is when we're traveling.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anytime we're traveling in an airport, and you know, we need to get our luggage and we need to get somewhere. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's this time where, like, you know, we're jumping out of a car and blah 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 blah. I mean, you just become oblivious, right? Like, you don't recognize your surroundings, and you're usually staring at your phone, and you're not recognizing cars coming by us, or vans, or buses, or where we need to go. And, you know, just one of the things that we've talked about every single time, but every single time we're in an airport, it just continues to happen. So that one only happens when we're traveling.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it's on a daily basis.
Daily basis, the biggest trigger that I've always had with you on a daily basis is just shutting the phone down at a certain time. You know, like, I really believe first time in the morning, first, even if it's 10, 15 minutes before when you're waking up, right? That should be our time, and same thing before we go to bed, that should be our time. But, you know, we're creatures of habit, and you work on your phone, and you've lived on your phone for 8 years. And so that's sometimes a very difficult thing for you to do, is just to put it down. Or to, again, I think a lot of it has to just recognize like the settings for you, and then be like, okay, I'll turn it off now, or I'll shut it off now. But that's like usually the only two things that really trigger me about you.
Lying. You're lying. That's the only
Those
thing
are the two major ones.
It's a big
The two major ones. What's another one?
That's if you want to be really honest, you know. But I mean, how the twin flame triggers you. It triggers something that you don't want to hear about yourself.
Correct.
Yeah, so what is that? It's not my phone, right?
That's been one of the biggest triggers.
That's the perfect example that men's are triggered less than women in their lives. So you triggered just with my phone, and I have a list of triggers that
Yeah,
I can give you.
I'm sure you do. Yeah. No, I mean, I think the most frequent ones, the ones that I recognize over and over and over, is like when we travel, it never changes. Many times I ask you, you don't ever change that. The phone thing. And yeah, I mean, then the part about like things in yourself that you want to see changed, I think those happen, but those aren't like you said daily, right? So those happen a little bit less frequently. Like what I think what you're getting with is like, there's a lot of things about me that trigger you, right? Exactly. So what's the one that's the most triggering for you?
The toothpaste.
The toothpaste?
No, it's not like triggering me though. I mean,
I've been really good with that.
okay.
I've been very good with that. Like, very good.
For a month.
For whatever.
3 years.
At least I'm like consciously trying to change it.
Okay.
right?
And that you're working a lot just for work, just for nothingness, you know, just
That's a
being
trigger?
busy. Yes, a lot. I'm
Why does that trigger you?
because I know your potential, and you know what you can do. Convert your time, your quality time, to your abilities. And
So then what would that have to do about you, though?
what that have about me, as a, why is that me? That sometimes I stuck in the worries about my life, and stuck in the programs that keeps me from achieving my fully freedom of expanding my full potential. Of course, you like mirroring me that.
Yeah. Because the toothpaste is just the toothpaste.
So pretty frequent question from women about twin flame. They asking, should the man do some practices or do a therapy to stay in a good balance in the twin relationship? Is it necessary?
Is it necessary once you're in a relationship?
Yes. Or is just women part? She needs to work on herself, and men just reflect her.
No, I think it's important for both. I think it's very important for both because, you know, and this is something where I'm a perfect example. Growing up, men are taught therapy is weakness, right? We're never allowed to, at a very young age, express emotions, or at least I wasn't. You know, like, again, being my age, I think I'm one of the last of the Mohicans where you were brought up under, like, you know, a man's supposed to be this and a woman's supposed to be this, and you should never cry and you should never let it out. So I think because of that, men suppress a lot of their emotions from an early age, and that becomes a habit. But it is not a very healthy habit, as I've learned by doing therapy, because we are emotional beings by nature, right? To deny that is to deny a part of who you are. And we all have emotions. We all experience happiness, sadness, you know, whatever. But when you suppress that, then you suppress a part of yourself. And, you know, as we both know, everything's energy. So when you bury a lot of those emotions and you fail to recognize them, just because you don't acknowledge them doesn't mean they don't exist, right? And I think having done shadow work on my own, oftentimes in a relationship, you can't be the best version of yourself for the other person unless you're the best version of yourself to yourself. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And I think we're not really raised to understand that. And when you have all these things that have happened, like anyone in life is going to have a series of traumatic events that have happened to them, or things that they're not, in, you know, that were maybe not what we consider like happy memories, right? So we've all been cheated on. We've all had people like not like us. We've all had people talk down to us. Maybe we had, you know, our parents were abusive or other people were abusive. And then that lives with us and becomes a part of who we are. And, you know, that also, by burying a lot of that stuff, I think helps, it prevents you from meeting the perfect person because you yourself are not whole. So I think it's very important for men to, you know, even though it's cliche and they may not want to admit to themselves, there is a lot of things that you can work on yourself to release a lot of these pains and really open yourself up. And I think once you're more open and you become like an overall happier person and more complete person and let go of a lot of the baggage, then, like I said, if you want to be the best version of the world, of yourself to the world, first you have to be the best version to yourself. I think that goes with a partner too, right? If you really want to be the best partner to the other person, the more of that type of work that you do, the more available you become, and a lot less of the trauma that you're bringing from other, especially when a relationship, from past traumatic relationships, right? And you don't want to project something that someone did from a past relationship onto your new partner, right? Because that's unfair to them, and then really unfair to both of you at the same time.
What kind of 3 advices you can give to men who already met their twin flame and feel like their partner, their true half?
Well, the hard part's already over.
Are you sure?
Well, yes, because better to have met your twin flame and be able to experience it than I feel like there may be a lot of people that never even experience that, right? So even though it took me 43 years, I'm still very appreciative that I was able to experience it. Maybe it didn't happen in my 20s or whatever. 3 pieces of advice. One, first and foremost, I would say, as a man, right, the biggest piece of advice I guess I would give to a man that's been a twin flame is that you really have to appreciate the fact that you have them in front of you, and you should want to do everything that you can to keep them with you. And one of those things I think that's really hard for ego to understand is, in my personal opinion, is really putting her first even before yourself. Does that make sense? Like, as far as being right all the time, right? Being like having to prove your point all the time and trying to like maybe never give on the way that you believe is only going to cause a lot of headaches, and I think could be one of the main reasons why you could end up losing your twin flame, right? Being able to acknowledge the other person's point of view. And this is something I learned in therapy a long time ago. So I guess one of the things that would really, really suggest that they take into consideration would be, anytime there's like a disagreement, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was to step out of the situation before letting it escalate, and then taking a look at it from the other person's perspective, right? Seeing it from their perspective first, because oftentimes when you do that, you stop like this emotional roller coaster that you go through. So that would be one of my first pieces of advice. It's very difficult to do, right? It's something that I couldn't do when I was very young, but it's something I've learned to do even with us when we have a disagreement, instead of trying to make my point and prove that I'm right, whatever, and then escalating the situation to maybe somewhere you don't want to go. Taking the chance to see it from their point of view and why they're feeling the way they feel oftentimes can help to diffuse it and then prevent it from getting worse. That would be number one, right? During arguments. Number 2, I would say, would be to be a very good listener, and not just someone that hears, right? Because men and women are completely different when it comes to communication oftentimes, right? Women like to talk more, they experience more of their feelings. And I know oftentimes when guys hear, oh, let's talk, or we need to talk, immediately we're like, oh, right? It's like a negative, we obviously take it as a negative connotation. But the reason that those things even happen in the first place is because probably somewhere in the past, we haven't been listening, really listening to what our partner's been saying, and I'm guilty of that too. Like sometimes guys will just zone out on their woman. They'll hear them. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing, you hear the sound, right? Wah, 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 wah. But listening, you're actually listening to what they're saying. And that's something that takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. But in our case and in other past cases, by being able to become a great listener, you can prevent a lot of the problems and a lot of the needs to have a talk into the future. So that's a second one. And the third piece of advice I would give would be, once you have your twin flame, you're going to want to do everything you can to keep your twin flame, because you know that it was very difficult to find them in the first place, and you obviously can recognize what you've had in the past. But I think that breaks down into 3 parts, which would be 1, you need to continue to try to, like I said before, make yourself a better version of yourself, right? And that goes with like working on yourself, letting go a lot of the stuff that you've accumulated in the past, doing the shadow work, really letting go of things that are holding you back. They say like shadow work is like trying to swim in an ocean with ankles around your weights, right? And the more of the weights you cut off, the easier it is for you to get to the top and actually breathe and get to that space. So by doing that, you'll then become, you know, the best version of yourself, which is what your partner really deserves to have. And they should continue to do it themselves. You know, this is not like a thing where one person should just do all of it and the other person should just rely on the other one to do all of the work all the time, and they should never really delve into that. So each part should do that. And then I think lastly, keeping the lines of communication open with your twin flame, and really never to stop appreciating the fact that you have them, but never want to stop growing together. Right, because I think that's part of the twin flame union and path. Like the statue, I keep doing this because there's a statue that really stood out to me. Another one of the signs that we were a twin flame is the intertwining thing. And once I told you about that, then we started to see it all around the world. Right, we saw in Turkey, we saw in Dubai, we saw in Egypt, we saw in different places. But I think that's really the path. Like the second you get stagnant and you stop trying to elevate together, then that can be very detrimental to a twin flame union. So that's one of the things that I think needs to happen to keep it going, keep the spark alive. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm. So this is it. That was our conversation with my twin flame. If you have more question about it and you want to see us more responding to your situations and your problems about twin flame union, you can text in the comments your situation and we will discuss it later. And also, subscribe to my channel and let's see you in the next videos. Bye.
Actually, I have one more thing I can add.
I'm
you done?
recording.
I thought you were done.
You said just in the right.
Oh. So I do have one piece of advice, though, I think I should pass along, and it was directly or indirectly how I met you. And that was, you know, when I was growing up, I always believed that this whole thing of true love, twin flame, you know, soulmate, whatever you want to call it, I always thought it was just some Hollywood thing, you know, some Hallmark holiday, something that was made up that doesn't really exist. And I think just like anything else in life, if you don't believe that something exists, then your chances of finding that are very, very, very small. Does that make sense? Like, first and foremost, you have to believe that this person actually exists out there if you're ever to find your perfect match. If you don't believe that it's something that's possible, then you probably will never find that. And that was exactly what's true with me. So I never really believed in that, right? And then I was watching like a YouTube or I think it was a YouTube or a TikTok, and it was one of the guys that was in The Secret, the movie The Secret, and he was like, you know, a lot of people never get what they really want out of life because they're not specific in their request to the universe or God or the ether, whatever you want to call it. And so he said, you know, for a lot of people, they say, oh, I want to make $1 million, or I want to meet my soulmate, or I want this, but they're never really specific in their ask. So one of the things that I think led me to you was in the 5 months prior to meeting you and watching this video, you know, I was at a point where I would really, really wanted to meet and believe that you existed. So I did this practice where they said, make a list and be as detailed as possible of all of the things that you would love to find in your prospective other, your perfect match. The way they look, the way they talk, the way they dress, the way they act, where they're from, all of their likes, all of their interests, you know, everything that you would want. And so for the first time in my life, I really sat down and was very intentional about what exactly I wanted out of a partner. And by listing all these things and being very specific, you can start to mold and see in your mind a version of what this person would actually be like. And then once you actually are able to see that, believing that there could be out there and exist becomes a lot more easy thing to do, right? It goes from then being like a fantasy to a lot more realistic. And for me, I think that directly led me to you, because I made a list, 5 months prior to meeting you. I made a list of everything I wanted you to be, and lo and behold, like, you ticked everything on that list. But I think once I was very intentional and I was reading that every day for, a couple months and making it part of my daily routine, then I feel like the universe started to work on my behalf, and the fact that you were able to come to me was not really a coincidence. And that's how I ended up halfway around the world in Egypt to find you, because that was the first time I ever really put that much intention into what I wanted my partner to be. In the past, it was just whoever I met, but I don't think it's any coincidence that a lot of those people didn't check all the boxes, or only checked half of the boxes. So I would say, one really good tool or like discipline you can do is to actually take the time to write out what your dream person looks like. And you did it too, right?
Yes.
You also did that a couple months before meeting me.
And funny thing that I realize now, that there was like a course, right, that I bought, and the girl who was running that course it just once in her lifetime, and never more. Like, after I bought this course and never before it. So that was the only one, and I was at some point decided to buy it,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy, but I also can add that you feel what you desire deep down in your heart. You already know which person you will meet. Like, yes, you never thought about it, didn't bring it to the surface of physical grounding to the words how I should be specifically, but in your heart, that's how you feel this match right away. Don't need it any time, because you know what you need, and this feeling is like doesn't
Correct.
need any description, any boxes. It's all for your mind more. And I think because men are more about their mind, they need to be specific on write it down.
100%. I think women probably, from the time they're little girls till the time they're adult women, have spent a lot more time thinking about what their dream man is versus what a man does. Like, men, we're very simple and we're not so detailed, right? We're like, for us, it's physical beauty first and then whatever else comes. But like, a lot of my friends, I've talked to them, very few of them have ever sat down and really penciled out what it looks like, right? And so I think being specific in that will really help, and especially for men, because I don't think we spend a lot of time really thinking about that. We're thinking about sports and other stuff, But again, but again, like, believing that it's out there first is step one, and then being intentional is step two. So,
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.